Shalom and welcome to Life Lessons. We are in the 25th lesson. We have gone through the book of Genesis, the book of Exodus. We are in the second Parshat, the second section of the book of Leviticus, known as Parshat Tzav. It continues with the story of the sacrifices, but also the story of the inauguration of the sanctuary in the desert. When the Jews in the desert, our ancestors, had built the sanctuary and exactly what that involved. That's towards the end. But in the beginning, it still continues to tell us different sacrifices. Mentioned in the last lesson that all these things have a very deeper meaning. It's not just about sacrificing an animal, but also it's talking about ourselves, maybe our own animalistic behavior that needs a little bit of a sacrifice and things like this. So the same as they exist a physical sanctuary, our sages tell us that each person has their own sanctuary. Each individual is a full world, is a whole world. Whoever, the Talmud tells, whoever sustains one human being is like taking care of an entire world. What that means is that inside us exists in a mini way everything that exists out there in the world. If there's animals out there in the world, that means inside us we also have some animalistic behavior that needs to be taken care of. The same as there is some good parts in this world, and we hope that the good takes over the evil. Same thing, the human being has the capability to always rise to the cause. The fact itself that we were given free choice, we're not robots, and that's where we are different than the rest of the creatures. We have the capability to rise and do the right thing. But a lot of times that comes with a price, each one of us different, but it demands from us to overcome our challenges and our inner conflicts, because God wants that it shouldn't just be yes man, yes we did. He wants us that we thought about it, we were challenged, and we did it. And when we do it despite all odds, God loves that even more. So that's something very important to have, because it's easy, as mentioned many times, when there is a challenge to give up. And we say, well, maybe it's not meant for me. I'm having all these obstacles. But then the Kabbalah teaches us, we should think for a minute, the reason why I got these challenges and Mr. Joe or Shmo, whoever his name is, didn't get those challenges is because maybe God trusts me that I could overcome my challenges, and that's why he gave me. The other person maybe is not ready yet to overcome challenges. So when we look with that kind of a positive attitude, and we know to begin with that we could overcome, then we could do it. So there's a very interesting verse in this parasha of Tzav. Tzav is what God told Moses, command Aaron and his children, and it's talking about the sacrifice of called Olav, the burnt offering. But then towards the end of the section, he talks about the fire on the altar. And then the verse says as follows, Eish tamid tukad al hamizbeach lo tichbe. This is in chapter 6 in Leviticus, verse 6. What it says is, a continuous fire should burn upon the altar. It must not go out. It must not go out. So a continuous fire needs to be there all the time. Now we know the words are precise. So there's something special here with an important lesson that's trying to tell us. So a fire needs to be burning all the time in the altar, continuous, and then it repeats and says, do not let it go out. Lo tichbe. It shouldn't go out. So what is the lesson and what do we learn from it in our service to God, in our individual relationship with the Almighty about the continuous fire, and what does it mean for us, the idea of an altar? So there's a few ideas to try to understand it. First of all, we know in the temple there was two altars. One was inside the structure, known as the inner altar. That was called the altar of spices, where they brought spices. But then there was the outer altar, outside in the courtyard. That's where they brought the sacrifice. What are they talking about? They're talking about is that the outside altar over there, make sure that the fire is continuous. And that's a very important point. Now, when we translate that to the human being, we know that from a few sources in the Talmud and in Kabbalah, that the altar is the heart of the human being. There's different parts, like the ark that's connected with the brains, but the altar, that is connected with the heart. Now, the difference between heart and mind is something that's very important, as we all know that we want that the mind should control heart. Heart is the seat of emotions. Simple way of looking at it, a child before they mature, and maybe some of us are still children that need to mature, is the emotions are very powerful, very strong. And as we see, unfortunately, in political debates and in other things like this, how sometimes we're not mature enough that when we have an argument and a discussion that we could respect each other, and a lot of times it turns into more of an emotional. Who says if you disagree with somebody, that's why all of a sudden you need to hate them? God forbid. Doesn't work that way. Why can it be two very good friends and they have different completely political views? Doesn't work in this century. But anyways, the idea of all that is there is the intellect. Then there is the heart that is connected with emotions. The altar that represents burning the sacrifice is the idea that the person should be burning to God. He should be full of emotions. So that's, and so in that itself could be, person could say, I'm excited about God. I'm excited about doing the right thing, but who says I have to show it? Since when do I have to show it? Why can't I keep it inside? Why can't I believe just in the inner altar? Why do I have to believe in the outside, in the outer altar? Comes the verse in here, it says, the fire should be continuously where? In the outside altar. That means to say that our excitement has to be something that people could see. This is where the advantage of emotions. No question about it. We want the intellect to be in charge. Mind should control the heart. But then, when mind controls the heart, it owns the heart, it gains the qualities of the heart. The mind is cold. A person could be a great thinker, great philosopher, great intellect, but very cold. There's not that much emotions. The advantage sometimes of the heart is where the person is very emotionally, very excited, love with a lot of passion. Unfortunately, could be hate with a lot of passion. It's all that emotion, but we're talking now in the positive. When in the positive, a person is excited about our relationship. You're excited about the relationship with God. So intellectually, they understood what's the right thing to do. Now it's time for the intellect to gain from the emotions, to direct the emotions in the right way. So then I'm excited about what I'm doing. If I am just an intellect cold, yes, I'm going to synagogue and I'll do the right thing. I'll keep what God has commanded, but it's kind of almost like become a routine because the excitement is gone. We're not talking about somebody who's going to do, God forbid, anything the opposite from God wants. No, he'll do everything that God wants, but it's kind of in a very cold way. It's perfect, but it's missing the excitement. And that's why the verse says here, spiritually speaking, that the outer altar needs to be continuously burning. The fire needs to be burning continuously. That means to say that the excitement that the individual has about his Judaism, or about his religion, about what he's believed, it shouldn't be cold. It should be an exciting thing. And we know that for a fact. If we want to influence other people, it's not going to happen if we're just going to sit there and be, as we say, nonchalant about this and be very cold. The individual said, wow, this individual is so excited about what he believes. Let me find out what's that all about. And we're not talking about that the person had something to drink. We're talking about controlled by the intellect and using his emotion the right way. The same thing is as in a relationship between spouses, where the spouses are excited about each other. There's a fire burning and there's something exciting. The same thing is translated out in our service to God. So that is what I would say point number one about the continuous fire, the outer altar, that means our emotions, that we should always be excited about what we're doing in our service to God. Okay. Now, here comes a very interesting point. There is a medrash, a commentators from the sources in the Torah that say something interesting, that on the verse that it says continuously, they say as follows: continuously even on the Sabbath, continuously even unpure. That means to say, even on the Sabbath, the fire should continue burning. I would think maybe in the simple meaning that on the Sabbath, we don't do all the weekly things, so maybe the fire should be turned off before the Sabbath. Says no, the fire has to be continuously during the Sabbath, the seventh day of the week. And even if the person is impure, still, if the altar became impure, still the fire should continue. What does that mean? What does that mean is the difference between Sabbath and the weekdays is that Sabbath is everything on Saturday, on Shabbat, everything that happened on the 6 days get elevated on Shabbat. So I don't need to do all this work. The work are connected more with the idea of emotions. The person is very involved in mundane, in the secular world out there. Comes Shabbat. Shabbat elevates the person to a higher level. Now you could think a whole Shabbat. You don't need to work. You're away from that. You elevate everything and you're into a higher level. And it's brought out. So that's the time where you are connecting yourself with the Almighty in quite of a higher level. It's like almost as we would say, more the intellectual part on Shabbat, as much as we were physical, involved in materialistic things, we become more spiritual on Shabbat. So I would think, if I became more spiritual on Shabbat, why do I need the fire to go? I don't need the fire to go anymore. Comes this explanation from our sages and tell us that as doesn't make a difference. Even in the highest level possible, you always need the excitement of the emotions. It's not something that you could shut it off and say, okay, I don't need this anymore. It was during the week was good, now I don't need it. No, it doesn't work that way. Not only this, it is very helpful that even if the person is in a very high level and he's flying high in the upper worlds, remember the emotional part, because the fire is what keeps the person going. In other words, you need to have the gas. You have a beautiful car and everything you got the top of the model, the best of the best, but if you don't put any fuel in there, it's going nowhere. So you need to have that fuel. So the person, as much as he advances and he understands, needs the fuel. The fuel is the fire, the continuous fire, that this is the excitement. So that's from one level, the idea that even on Shabbat, the fire should be on. Now to the other extreme, when a person is impure and he says to himself, if I would be there, let's say I was born and brought up in a good home, and they gave me the tools, and I went to school, and I made it. Fine, I understand. But me, I never got good grades in school. I came from the neighborhoods that not necessarily are the best neighborhood. So maybe it's not for me. This is not for me. So here comes the Torah and says, the continuous fire is for everyone. It does not really make a difference who's your background, she, he, for where they came from, doesn't make a difference. If you got a heart, you got a soul, then spiritually speaking, each one of us could ignite that fire no matter what. So maybe I'm not going to reach there as that great intellectual and that the one is book smart and knows everything. It does maybe not going to reach that level, but it doesn't take away for whatever we know and for whatever we could do, because there's no such a thing that there's no human being that could say he knows nothing. There's no such a thing. Any one of us that is alive knows something. And if we use that fire that we have and don't let it die down, that is something that is very important. There's a very interesting saying from the Magi. There was a second Hasidic Rabbi, and he learned over here, and he said like this: a continuous fire on the altar, lo tichbe, simple meaning is, you may not let it go out. But in Hebrew, lo means don't extinguish. You could, or you read it don't extinguish, or you read the don't, the negative, extinguish. So he learned it that way. In other words, it's telling us that even if a person thinks to themselves that there is some negative and they need to deal with some negative that exists inside them, they say, I'm not capable. Remember, because you have a fire, you could always take care of the negative and get rid of the negative. It's an important thing, especially in the world that we live and we see what's going on around us. And a lot of times it's very easy to give up and say to ourselves, this is not for us. The whole thing of being pure and doing the right thing is maybe for a few individuals. But for the average person like us, we try our best and we continue with our lives, and whatever it is, it is. No, it's not so. We got a fire inside us, and we need to get that fire going and burning all the time. So that will be the second point. The third point is something very interesting. When we talk about fire, fire means warmth. It's exciting, but it's also warm. What will be the opposite? The opposite will be cold. What does it mean when it comes in serving God, the difference between cold and warm or hot is excitement. And more than that, cold means where the person is doing the right thing, but is not there. Is not running to do it. Is not excited about it. The excitement is in something else. We know the story in the Torah that says, when our ancestor came out of Egypt, they had an encounter. The Amalekites came and encountered them. Now, they just came out of Egypt. They were on a high, witnessed miracles. God took them out of Egypt, 10 plagues, splitting of the Red Sea. Unbelievable. And here they are going to receive the Torah on Mount Sinai. And here comes this Amalek. And this Amalek knows that the percentage of success against these Jews is almost zero. So why is he coming? So the Talmud says something very interesting. He's there to prove a point. He wants to cool them off. He says, don't get so excited. Don't get so excited. There's a famous example that they use from Rashi uses. He says, there's a hot bathtub. Very, very hot. Anyone that puts their foot in, impossible, can't go in. You just need one crazy person to jump in and show that it's possible. He's going to get burned and who knows what. But he had proven the point that it could be done, as crazy it could be. I'm not going to compare it to those that jump in the lake January 1st when it's very cold temperature. But you have that too, but you get the idea. So all of a sudden, one person did it, it opened the door for others. That's the problem with all these crazies, with the ISIS and all these crazy people that exist. We say to ourselves, I can't believe this such craziness, people, the way they kill others and this. But the problem is that one person started, and all of a sudden, other people want to imitate even though it doesn't make sense. So this Amalek, that's what he did. You need just one person. So here we are. We're so excited. He comes and he says, relax. I have nothing against your Judaism, but what's the excitement? In the Hebrew term, it says, Asher karcha baderech. He met you in the way, but also it means karcha from the word cool. He cooled you off on the way. It says, what are you getting excited about? It's going to come. It's like, imagine a person knows he's making money, he's going to invest, and it's going to be and we know the human nature is when it comes to money, we get excited. And for you know that, by the end of the day today, I'm going to get a paycheck, and it's going to be so much. So we look forward for it. This is human nature. As much we want to say to ourselves, we're holy people and we don't like money. The bottom line is each one of us looks for our paycheck and we need to live. And we have a certain excitement about what we're doing. We love the job that we're doing. But beneath all this, what's all that connected to it? Because there's a certain reward that comes with what we're doing. So let's say somebody comes and says, don't be so excited. You're going to get paid anyway. So what's the difference? But that's not our nature. Our nature is we want it that it should be perfect, it should be good. Or if we have a boss, or if we don't have a boss, if we own the business ourselves, even more so, we want everything should be even more so. The same thing translates in our relationship with God. When we are involved in our Yiddishkeit, it has to be warm and excitement. That's what it means. Another idea is don't extinguish the fire. Always be excited what you're doing. Even if it's the same prayer as yesterday. I'm opening the prayer book. It's the same prayer as I did yesterday. So maybe I should just, take a little bit nap while I'm praying. I said the same thing yesterday. We face every day like it is a new day. And that's what it is. Because when we woke up this morning and we saw we're alive, we're thankful to the Almighty that He returned as our soul peacefully. We went to sleep at night and we are told the soul goes back to heaven, came back in the morning, and here we are, and it's a new day. It's not just a continuation of what was yesterday. It's a new day. It's a new day, and we're excited about it, and we take our Judaism or our religion with full excitement to do the right thing. So that is, the third point is about the warmth and the excitement. Another interesting thing about the fire, and this will be point number 4, is it's written, and we know that very clearly, that the fire came from heaven. The fire came from heaven. In the time of the temple, the fire came from heaven. But still, before the fire came from heaven, there had to be a preparation. The human down here, the priest down here, needed to prepare the wood, start their own fire. And after they started their own fire, it came from heaven. And this is a very important point. A lot of times, we think to ourselves, you know what? I'm going to sit with my hands folded, and I'm waiting for inspiration from above to come. If the inspiration comes, great, God, I love you. But if the inspiration doesn't come, so it means it's not for me. Ain't going to work. There has to be a preparation from below. We need to prepare ourselves that the light of God should enter us. That's why it's written in Kabbalah, each one of us has to create their vessel. If the cup is full, nothing more could come in. So you have to create an empty vessel where that represents humility, being humble, and that allows that the light from above comes in, that the fire from above comes in. So no question about it, the ultimate is the fire from above, and that should not extinguish. But where does it start? It starts with the individual. We find in the 7 days of the inauguration, Moses would put the sanctuary up and down till finally on the 8th day the fire came from heaven. For 7 days they prepared themselves. It's interesting, by the way, 7 days, Kabbalistically speaking, represents nature, 7 days of the week. Number 8 represents above nature. That is the influence from above. So first, if you want to get to number 8, ain't going to happen by itself. You must have number 7 before. So we work on ourselves. We refine our attitude. We work on our intellect and our emotion. And that opens up that it should come up from heaven. So then comes the other point that we'll conclude with, that is, if we did the right approach, then what comes from above is continuous. God is above time. God is above limitation. And if we connect to the real connection with God, then it's forever, continuous, no stop whatsoever. So that should be a good lesson for us in our service to God. And the fire should be continuous all the time. And we should all merit very soon the ultimate revelation from above, the coming of Mashiach in our days. Thank you.